Greenleaf Printing and Designs has stupendous signage, printed and embroidered apparel, and promotional products for you. They're at 5526 Burkhart Road in Dayton and on the web at greenleafprinting.com.
Date on the photo speed enforcement is just a brief reminder of the ordinance changes that occurred last year. The ordinance language was changed to reflect the inclusion of photographic speed enforcement in addition to our red light camera enforcement. The language also was changed to reflect the kind of environments we'll be doing this enforcement, which would be locations other to or in addition to intersections, so the word location was used in the ordinance. There was also an extension of the time where the notice of liability could be sent to 20 days from 10 days. And then lastly, a $25 late fee was added for those individuals who had not paid their violation within the required 30 days period of time. Subsequent to the passing of the ordinance last year, a speed study was done. Actually, the first one that was done during my tenure here as chief was done in February 2008, and we looked at speeds that were being recorded at the 10 intersections where we had camera red light enforcement, and in fact found there were a significant number of speed violations. That certainly was one of the reasons that I recommended, along with some other changes, some other ordinances, the inclusion of photographic speed enforcement almost 3 years ago. A subsequent study was done after the ordinance was passed, was conducted last year, and in fact that study was done at locations where there was a high volume of accidents, and those could have been rear-end accidents, red light accidents, or just other high accident locations. So what we did is looked at where are we having a lot of accidents. Let's do speed study to see what kind of speeds are being generated in those locations, and then based upon that, what locations seem to be appropriate for speed enforcement, because that speed is contributing to the fact of these accidents occurring at these places. So that was the speed study was conducted. The outcome of that is the identification of 10 locations, the first of which will go live on July 1st, and you can see those up there on the screen of Gettysburg and Cornell, Gettysburg between Bierman and Fairbanks, US 35 and Abbey, Kiwi Street between 4th and Bacon, and 3rd Street between Hatfield and Alder. Now, 2 of these locations are also red light camera enforcement locations. Should a citizen go through one of those intersections, both speeding and violate the red light, they would only receive 1 citation. That will be for the red light. So people will not be getting 2 citations, even though they committed 2 violations potentially. The reason those locations were selected is that they were in high accident locations, and the alternatives within the immediate area did not have either infrastructure or their other related problems that made them not practical to do the enforcement, even though the speeds being recorded indicated that speed enforcement was needed. So we were not initially going to pick the same locations, but in 2 cases that was the only appropriate alternative, given there were high speeds, high accident location, and infrastructure existed. The second phase, which will go live on August the 1st, includes these 5 locations. So you have Smithville between 4th and Marydale. We also have Smithville between Argella and Marymount, Salem Avenue between Otterbein and Rugby, 3rd Street between Bates and Clinton, and Kiwi between Stanley and Embry Park. This is just a map that indicates both red light enforcement and speed enforcement locations. The speed photo enforcement is in the blue, and the red is the red light is in fact in red, so you get an indication how these are dispersed across the city. Once again, all this driven by high accident locations, and as it relates to speed, where recorded speeds or indicative speeds contributing to the accidents occurring at these places. We also have a mobile speed enforcement as an additional tool. This is an example of what actually the van looks like. We'll be doing mobile speed enforcement. This will be done in response to community complaints of speed. It'll also be used as part to generate the warning citations during the 30-day grace period that occur beginning July 1. just another picture of the inside of that, showing one of the cameras as well as the computer laptop or screen that's in there, so it's capturing these images. And then in the rear you see also another camera as well as all the equipment to store those images and transmit them, etc. Just real quick also is an update on the citation. Someone receives a citation, how to resolve the citation. Basically there's three ways. First is pay the citation if they are not disputing the violation. Second is if the registered owner was in fact not the person who was responsible for the violation, then they must give us the name of the individual who was driving the car and responsible for that violation, and do so within 15 days. And lastly, if they wish to appeal it, then they must file that appeal within 15 days and request a hearing. An $85 bond must be provided along with the hearing request prior to the date of the citation before the hearing is in fact granted. And then lastly, a failure to act on the above will result in this $25 late fee being added to the fine amount, and if the responsible party does not respond to this notice, in fact the citation will be sent to collections. In addition, the ordinance that was being under review and by commission would allow for 2 or more unpaid violations to result in potentially a vehicle being towed, and that will take effect in about 30 days. So there is an additional, so that is the update to the camera speed enforcement. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer this.
So the mobile van will be like anywhere, huh?
Right. It could be at any location. There will be signage alerting citizens the fact that it is in a particular location, so it won't be a surprise. It will be deployed primarily in response to complaints at speed locations and when we don't have the resources to deploy police personnel to do that.
Okay, good.
Have we noticed a reduction in the number of accidents at the locations already where we have?
Yes, in fact, those reductions have been significant. We've been tracking those literally since the inception of this program about 8 years ago, and all the data shows significant decline, which is really what the intention was. We want to prevent accidents, and particularly want to prevent injuries related to those accidents. Our data supports that we, in fact, have been accomplishing that.
Because there's an inherent cost to having an ambulance go out and everything too. So besides the damage and the cost to society,
and particularly the injury to persons, which results in substantial claims to insurance companies if people are insured, and can result in long-term, lifelong disabling injuries and death. And we certainly know those incidents occur in our community to this day.
Now, when people get notified, they get a picture in the mail, right? But the reality is, we have a video recording of that entire maneuver.
Right. It's not only still photos, but video recording the violation itself also.
Right. So when they say I made a right turn, we can verify.
Or I didn't do it, or we provide those images and provide the video, and again, if they want to contest it, they certainly can take that to a hearing.
Okay. I just kind of want people who are watching this to realize that what they see as a picture, we actually have video recordings.
That's correct.
They take stills. So I don't have any other questions.
Chief, can you talk, I know you've mentioned it before, can you talk about what kind of speeds you found when you did those speed studies?
Well, what we looked at is at what point it looked like a significant portion of folks were exceeding the speed limit by at least 10 miles an hour. The threshold was looked at, we want to achieve at least about 85% of the people were traveling within the posted speed. In fact, when 85% of those folks were exceeding that speed limit by 10 miles per hour or less, that was kind of a trigger point that we needed to look at something. We had people who were, in fact, exceeding the posted speed by 10 miles per hour or more. Now, most of these speed limits, most of them are 35 miles an hour. You increase by just 10 miles an hour, that's about almost a third. You're going a third faster than the law allows, and which we think is the safest speed allowed on that roadway. Mm-hmm. Now, in fact, we've had speeds, I can tell you, I think it was 2008, literally over 100 miles an hour in a city street. You couldn't defend that on an expressway. So we've had some rather extraordinary speeds. Actually have the printout of what that looks like for these various intersections, but some of them were quite extraordinary.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I mentioned one other thing. Since we put these in, people have learned and have been trained that these are the intersections, And actually, over a period of 5 or 6 years, the total number of citations we've given has been cut more than in half. So people learn that and they follow the rules, and I think that's, again, another very good result of this kind of a program.
It is. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's the point.
If it saves one life, it was worth it.
In fact, one of our images was actually caught in Dayton a number of years ago where an individual pedestrian was struck by a car. There was an accident intersection, the car rolled and actually rolled over the pedestrian. That was on one of the real TV shows I happened to just catch about a year ago. This is literally one of the images from our community, an enormously spectacular accident. Fortunately, that person literally survived because of the way that vehicle landed and where the damage was. Literally protected that person when they went over the top of them. But it was just a spectacular event, and that was captured on one of our images.
Okay.
So a request for the mobile tool van would be initiated by your staff versus a neighborhood group, or vice
No,
versa?
it would be primarily going to be generated by neighborhood complaints. For instance, when we had announced that I guess when the commission actually passed the ordinance or announced, no, I guess a little bit after, we're in the midst of doing our speed study or just completed it, we had a complaint from some residents on Gettysburg, or I'm taking it back with Salem Avenue, who had a concern. And so we literally went out and did a speed study there, and we said, we've looked at the data. We understand speed is an issue for you, but the data doesn't support a permanent camera to be installed there. However, should there be ongoing concerns once we get this program up and running, we can deploy the mobile speed camera. But really, we're contacted by a community organization said we would like to have one of the cameras. So it is a concern out in our neighborhoods, and we would deploy that mobile speed van in response to those complaints if there is not fixed camera speed enforcement anywhere in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.